Week 5, the Lineups College Football Show. We have made it. Jared Smith, Pete Fiutak, excited to be back with you today. Pete, it feels like, again, we just keep getting these data points, and we're still in September, even though almost half the season now is in the books.
And this is fun. Look, for all the people who cry and whine, I was never one of them because I think I got it right, for about the 12-team playoff, it just makes it more interesting because it sucked to say, I didn't think Florida State deserved to be in the college football playoff a couple years ago, but It sucked. They went undefeated. All right, let's give them your shot. There shouldn't be that kind of argument. It should be more about the other teams getting in. And now you've got, every conference race matters. You can point to, something crazy like, Cal getting boat raced by San Diego State, but yet you look at the rest of their schedule and they might be in the college football playoff with their schedule. So it's fun. It's a more fun year. We don't have one killer team unless your beloved Penn State Nittany Lions come out and just doornail the Ducks because of your white T-shirts in your building there.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get to that. We'll save that game for last. We save the best for last here on the show. That's how we make it.
Oh, you mean Alabama, Georgia's not bigger? It's not actually, but yes.
I think it's bigger in the sense of, is Georgia the best team in the country? I think we'll get a better answer of that.
It's bigger because Oregon and Penn State, the loser's fine. Realistically, it's
if Bama loses, they're in trouble.
You're playing an exhibition at this point, just to see. So remember last year, Oregon and Penn State played in the Big Ten championship, and that meant the fat load of jack squat once Ohio State.
You could argue Oregon should have lost that game. They would have been better off if they would have lost that game.
And not to get not to get off the rails here, but that's the flaw in the system is that you are much better off. Do not play that. So basically, you're saying your 13th game is either a home game in the college football playoff like Notre Dame had against Indiana, or your 13th game is in the Big Ten or SEC or conference championship, which, if you were a loser, that's the worst of all possible worlds because you get no break, even though it didn't matter for Penn State last year.
Yeah, I think it was a weird year because Ohio State lost to Michigan, and Ohio State should have played Oregon in that Big Ten championship game if they would have won as, a 3-touchdown favorite. And then it would have been a very different scenario. Again, these are the permutations that we just
I will tell you, I have no skin in the game. And actually, and I say this to their face, I do radio hits in Columbus and in Cleveland. There is no more miserable fan base in all of sports in the history of the world than Ohio State. And literally, they are miserable whether they win, lose. And I could not get it through anyone's head that Michigan loss actually was a positive.
Yeah.
They just fire Ryan Day. Oh, I don't want to get that. I would rather lose all the games and like all that stuff. And then they win the national championship. So, but to get back on here, that's why these games are kind of interesting because each and every game now you can kind of say, all right, the goal is to get to 10 wins. Forget the winning the SEC championship, forget winning, conference championship. If you're a power conference team and you go 10-2, you're probably getting in this thing. 9-3, forget what the schedule says about the college football playoff people. 9-3 ain't getting it done unless you win your conference championship. 10-2, and you're right there for this. That's why all these games this week. That's why USC going to Illinois. That's why Indiana going to Iowa. That's why all these other games now take on a bigger feel because you win it and you can say, you know what? If we just win the games we're supposed to, it's gonna be mid-November and we're gonna be right there with a shot at this. And then there's other teams like Auburn where it's like or Oklahoma where you look at their schedule and like thanks for playing, or Wisconsin who's not gonna win another game now.
Yeah, that was a tough, and we'll get to that Auburn game in a minute. Big game for them at A&M, but the Mateer news, and I guess that's a good place to start. The Heisman now, I'll be honest, who knows? I think Carson Beck, if Miami finishes undefeated or 11-1, will be on the podium. I don't think Indiana, if they lose 2 games, I don't think Mendoza will be on the podium. Do you think that? He's the favorite right now. Do you think that has any staying power?
People are guessing. It's so crazy. There isn't anybody. And I still say Travis Hunter shouldn't have won last year, but what do I know? I just
There's
vote
not
for
a
this
Hunter
thing.
and there's not a Genty this year. It's really
There's
tough.
not one of those guys, or Scadaboo, who I thought Shador was the best player and most
Who
valuable.
is the best running back in the country? I guess it's still Love, but he's not getting enough carries to be a Heisman.
Well, but not for the Heisman, but we want to talk. You remember several years back, it's not Bush and Lendale White, but more like Ronnie Brown and Carnell Williams, where Love and Price, they're going to be drafted in the fantasy leagues for the next 15 years. So they're going to be a part of our lives. So that Notre Dame 1-2 punch is really, really strong. So to start there for this week, look, I am a believer. Like I said, get to 10-2. I think they're that good. They just so happen to play the two best offensive lines probably in the country. And in Marcel Reed and Carson Beck, those are two of the three best quarterbacks they've played since the beginning of last year, Tyler Shugg being the other. And now they don't have to deal with that anymore. So they got to go to USC, but I think they go in. Taylor Green's playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
But Arkansas I think Notre Dame, it's going to be a shootout. I think take the over on this because Notre Dame's defense hasn't shown much anything. So I love the over, and I still like Notre Dame to keep on rolling.
Yeah, that's what I wrote in my notes on this game. I said, this is a bet. I said, the first line was, how did Arkansas lose to Memphis last week? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, because Memphis did everything humanly possible. They did every coaching thing wrong at the very end, including going for two at the dumbest times. They screwed everything up, and they still found a way to pull that off.
Yeah, you've got a pretty high total in this game, 64.5. I did take some Arkansas plus 5.5 early in the week. That's gone now. It's down to 4.5. The second line of my notes in this game, Arkansas is not the offense you want to face when your defense is struggling. It's just not a great recipe. And then the third line, and you could tell me if I'm crazy or not. I heard this on a podcast this week, and I don't know if I agree with it or not. Marcus Freeman, one bad loss away from being the 2025 version of Mike Norvell.
Actually, no, not Mike Norvell. That's Kansas State. Actually, that's
Okay.
that thing. It's because the comp is real because you lose that Ireland game, it sucks the soul out of you. Apparently,
Yep.
No. Actually, I'm going to give you the old guy comp. That I'm not even going to take credit for this because one of my friends said it. The thing about Marcus Freeman was he kind of did a lot of the celebrity tour. Like there wasn't a camera he was not in front of this entire offseason, did every sort of endorsement, every sort of thing. He was always around. And so this is kind of predates me a little bit here, but it was kind of like 1986 Chicago Bears. So it's like Marcus Ditka, who like Mike Ditka, after they won the 85 championship, was apparently everywhere in Chicago sports. You could not get, he went on the media tour and kind of lost the focus a little bit. I think that's a little bit of what happened here. But yeah, he's one loss away, but this team is still really good. Their offense is still a killer. CJ Carr's the real deal. I think they go in and roll Arkansas, but in a high-octane shootout.
Yeah, it should be a really fun game. The other game that's at noon, USC-Illinois. USC is about a touchdown favorite on the road. I mean, this is like a get-off-the-mat game for Illinois. Are they healthy enough to play in this game? I mean, they were losing tons of defensive backs left and right. USC, I mean, Maiava is number one in EPA per dropback right now in college football.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with this game because I could see anything. Because that was a bad day, whether you lose by 6 or 60. You know, that was one of those like, okay, bad day, F it, let's move on. They just did not have it. They couldn't hit the curveball. Indiana had it. But Illinois is one of those teams that could bounce back quick and pitch a gem. And just, USC's really strong. They're playing well. They're explosive. The problem right now for Illinois more than anything else is going to be they got to deal with the USC pass rush because the USC defense isn't great, but they are getting into the backfield. I think that's going to be just enough to pull this off. But again, if we're talking next week and Illinois wins 28-3, I would not be shocked because you get USC out of LA and all of a sudden strange things tend to happen.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I do like this USC team. I think we talked about it before earlier in the season. I bet over 7.5 wins. Looking good now. We'll see.
I love that one.
We'll see how it plays out. We mentioned Ohio State. They are in the AP poll. Take whatever stock you want in that. They are the number one team in the country. Traveling to Washington this week. I feel like this number should be a little bit wider. Maybe the market giving some respect to the Huskies. Only an 8.5-point dog. And maybe Damon Williams, who's number 2 behind Jaden Maiava in EPA per dropback. Maybe the Huskies with Coleman and that running game could keep this one close.
This is one of those scary moments where, you always see this in college football over the years, where you have kind of the fish out of water game where all of a sudden the team goes somewhere. Like it was a million years ago when, Nebraska went to like Arizona State late night and Jake Plummer and all of a sudden went off, and Nebraska, this high-powered team, couldn't get a first down. And, it might just be one of those games where almost like, Alabama, Florida State, where you go someplace crazy, the Husky Stadium's going to be insane. That crowd's going to be wild. And all of a sudden, a couple bad plays here and there, and this is not the right day. The thing that I'm a believer that don't mess with a streak when it comes to college football. Ryan Day doesn't lose these games. When Ryan Day loses, it's national championships. It's to Michigan. I think there's only one game in the Ryan Day era where he's lost to anybody who didn't end up with at least 11 wins or so. So, he wins all the games like this. So start with the idea that Ohio State's probably going to win. I don't love the 8.5, but I'm going to go with it, and I'd give them a little bit more. I'm just going to, until I see otherwise, I'm going to stick with Ohio State.
Yeah, Washington was the other Big Ten team I thought was a little bit undervalued. Again, it's
Very
tough
much.
maybe to gauge the market on these West Coast Big Ten teams as they travel east and then travel back west. And I thought 7.5. I mean, listen, Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman. Not a lot of teams in the country have a quarterback-running back duo on that level. That's pretty solid.
And it's interesting you say that, by the way, because that's something to mark for going forward with USC, because USC went to Purdue, went back home, had that late-night game that ended up finished at 3 a.m. East Coast time against Michigan State, which they had to try at the end. They got to fly back over to Champaign, Illinois. They're going back to L.A., and then they're going back out to South Bend. So I don't care who you are, and I know these guys are, they're not exactly luxury traveling, but, you're traveling a lot if you're USC over the next few weeks. So let's see if those body blows start to add up a little bit, because that does kind of mess with you a little bit.
I agree. I think both Washington and USC will go over 7.5 wins, but I think Ohio State. Here's the wild card. Julian Saint's first road start, and he hasn't been tested yet. I know that game against Texas was, a good win, but he didn't really do much in that game. He just kind of went through the motions. This will be a fun test. I'm excited to see Ohio State in this. First of all, it's
I think
their
defense shows up. I like the
Agreed.
defense will keep it close. I mean, there's some crazy stat. I think take out they've allowed 17 points or fewer in an obnoxious amount of games over the last 2.5 years. Their D is just that good, and they've had time. They're rested up. I think they're ready to go. And let's see. To go back to your Heisman thing. Let's see we need more players on big stages to do stuff, because that's when you get into a Heisman stage. Because like you said, is Mendoza going to win the Heisman? No, probably not. But everyone saw it, so all of a sudden ooh, Heisman. Why? Because they watched the game.
Yeah.
When you don't watch, you kind of you blow off these players. But that's it. It's a popularity contest. So let's see if Jeremiah Smith has this game where he goes off in front of people, or let's see if Sane goes off, or let's see who's going to be the star coming out of this.
That's a good point on Jeremiah Smith, because that's the one guy I haven't heard mentioned. I've heard a lot of Mendoza. I've heard a lot of Beck. I have some Beck. I haven't heard anyone talk about Jeremiah Smith.
Well, and it gets lost. Last year, he was good. He was steady good throughout last year, but everyone saw the Rose Bowl and was like, oh my gosh, this guy's Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens all wrapped up in a bun. And he was good, but he had the one monster game. He wasn't that good all season long, and he was great, but again, he didn't have those types of games. He had the one game everyone saw, and now everyone wants to give him the Heisman. So that's how this Heisman thing works.
It's true. All right, let's go to the SEC. LSU Ole Miss. Game's about a pick-em total in the mid-50s. What a weird storyline this week with Whit Weeks, linebacker from LSU, hard launching his relationship with one of Lane Kiffin's daughters. That is a sick and twisted mind game. The question is, Pete, I don't know which side of the mind game was really responsible for it. Is this LSU, Whit Weeks, forcing Lane Kiffin's daughter to try to get inside of Lane's head, or is this Lane trying to get Whit Weeks away from his, mental responsibilities of playing football this week?
Well, if Lane Kiffin's saying they're going to take the over, then I know he was talking about his daughter and whatever, but Lane Kiffin joked, take the over on this, and I'm not going against it. I love him. I've always been a Lane Kiffin apologist. I think he is the best, most talented coach going, outside of maybe Kurt Signetti. Everyone forgets that Ole Miss is not a powerhouse football program. It was bad. It's always been mediocre to, okay. It's never been an Alabama. It's never been a Georgia. It's never really won anything. And this is actually the best era of football in Ole Miss history without, if you take away a couple of those years, because what Kiffin's doing there is amazing with that offense. I like LSU. I just don't. The problem is both teams, Ole Miss is going to go so fast. The offense is going to click, and LSU is going to get dragged into this game. They're going to open it up a little bit. The problem is that this LSU running game really doesn't work. But Nussmeier is going to dink and dunk and make it interesting. I think it's going to be a back and forth fight. I'm going to take LSU and the over in this. Even though LSU's defense is good, they're not putting up a ton of points. I'm going to still go over on this and say they're going to get to about 55, 56 points between the two.
Yeah, the other storyline in this game that really matters on the field is the quarterback situation for Ole Miss. It looks like Chambliss is the guy. He's looked pretty good. You don't see a lot of Ferris State.
I was going to say a D2. His stats, I actually knew of him, but I didn't know what he did. He ran last year for over 1,000 yards and 26 touchdowns, and he threw for 26 touchdowns. No, I don't care. I know it's D2, but you're right.
Ferris State's legit. I covered a lot of football in Michigan in my high school day. When I was working for local news there. Ferris State's legit. They're a national championship kind of program.
You're a quarterback and you run for 26 touchdowns and you throw for 3,000 yards. You're doing something right.
Yeah.
He's a baller's baller, and but the problem is this LSU defensive front is the real deal, and they are good at getting into the backfield, and I think they bother old Chambliss a little bit, just enough, just to kind of bother him and force him into a couple mistakes. So I think the defense comes through when it has to for the Tigers.
I agree. Blake Baker is kind of a madman. I actually thought that was, and I know the Clemson win is kind of aged like milk, but that was my biggest takeaway from early in the season was LSU's defense looks like they've kind of turned a corner with their schematics, and Ole Miss offensive line looks like absolute doo-doo, just doo-doo balls, really bad.
The potty mouth on this program.
I know.
The family show
really
here.
bad.
Kids,
Listen,
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't say the bad word. I kind of hinted at it. But that's the thing about Lane Kiffin. Here's a line from my notes. Kiffin's done a good job of hiding the fact that this offensive line's not very good because he's an elite play caller. So it is kind of a chess match. I think the Baker-Kiffin chess match, play caller DC is going to be fascinating to watch. But I agree. I think I would give the edge. Anytime I'm in doubt, I give the edge to the team that can do the trenches better. Because that, to me, is less volatile. If you're better in the trenches, you're probably going to win the game more often than not.
Yeah, and I don't like the fact also that Ole Miss, had issues closing over the last couple. I mean, they weren't that much pressure against Kentucky, but it was a little bit of a fight there at the end. And I do think that Ole Miss is going to drag out the offense where LSU scores a little bit. That's why I kind of like the over.
Yeah.
But that place is going to be crazy, and that offense is going to get rolling early. But I do think again, the LSU defense is going to settle in.
I don't have a play on this game. I'll just sit back and watch the popcorn from the Whit Week stuff. All right, Auburn A&M. A&M's about a touchdown favorite, total around 52.5. I really like A&M in this spot. They're off the bye. Auburn just played a physical game where Jackson Arnold, I think he just got sacked again, 10 times total in the game. Maybe you could argue that Oklahoma was fortunate to cover, but they were. I
was just going to say, bless your heart if you were on the wrong side of that. Yeah. That was brutal. But yeah, you're right.
Still, defensively, they put Arnold in a torture chamber all day. And I think that's a tough bounce back. Now you got to go to A&M, another tough environment. Texas A&M's off the bye. This is a revenge game, too. Remember, Auburn beat them in 4 overtimes last year, kept A&M out of the SEC title game. So I'm sure Texas A&M's got this one circled.
Yeah, there's actually, I think technically they were still in it if they had beaten Texas. But it was still a revenge game. But yeah, like I said before, when it comes to Notre Dame, this offensive line for Texas A&M is awesome. You've got a couple of NFL first-rounders. Marcel Reed's playing well. Their running game's just fine. Auburn just doesn't have the explosiveness. And Jackson Arnold's been really good from mid-range to short. They just don't have the pop. And so in a game like this, when you got to open it up a little bit, plus I'm not sold that Hugh Freeze is all that great. So Auburn's got one of those teams this year that's just good enough to be competitive in every game. They're going to end up probably going 6-6 when you look at the rest of their schedule.
Yeah. I said this last week. I don't like check with me offenses on the road in the SEC. I just think it's hard
screwed them up
to operate.
last week. Yeah, it's too loud. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially there too. So I'm with you. I think, the overcoaching of college football and football in general, where I'm with you. Just let them go back there and sling. But Arnold and the Auburn offense, they're very ball control. They're very, don't screw up. Give them credit. They have not had a problem with turnovers or penalties. And,
not yet.
They've kept, but I
Turnovers
think
have a funny way of popping up in weird moments.
Well, once you have to bust out of your shell a little bit, but I think give some credit to the Auburn defense too. By the way, that run by Mateer, that's the first touchdown run they've allowed all year. So that Auburn defensive front's pretty strong too. So I do like Texas A&M, and like you said, another physical game, but give it to the rest of the team at home.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going A&M here. I think this is a great money line parlay game too. If you're afraid to lay it. I wouldn't be, because it's under a touchdown, and I think as long as it's 6.5, you should feel comfortable. But I would definitely put A&M in the money line parlay category. And if you want the X factor for Auburn, Cam Coleman, that guy can
show up, dude.
He is legit. That's the one thing that scares me in this game. You better double team Cam Coleman, Mike.
Hadn't done yet though. They've had a couple here and there, but they do not stretch the field enough with him. But he's an NFL guy. Yeah,
I agree. And he's the one. He's honestly the only reason that Auburn had any chance to be in that game against Oklahoma. The only reason why, because Arnold was seeing ghosts out there.
I'll tell you this right now. For the rest of the year, you look at that Auburn schedule. We can just copy and paste this, because we're going to say the exact same thing every single week about every Auburn game. Good, they've got all these good parts, and they'll lose and probably not cover. So.
Yeah, I agree. Indiana tries to follow up one of the most dominant performances you've seen in recent memory at Iowa. Funny, as a Penn State fan, I can attest. Funny things happen in Iowa City, but IU is over a touchdown favorite. Low total, 48.5. It's the total that intrigues me, because Iowa's offense looks like a very different offense than we've seen in years past, Pete.
What scared me is the first half of the Rutgers game. If Ethan Kaliakmakis, however you say his name, the Rutgers quarterback, I mean, he's fine. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's, but all of a sudden Rutgers is moving up and down the field with way too much ease. If Rutgers can do that, I know their offense is different now. They have no defense whatsoever. But if Rutgers can do that, what can this Indiana offense do? With the short, quick passing game and, just spread everyone out, get everyone in space. And, Cignetti is a brilliant tactician when it comes to this type of stuff. Iowa's going to have to be dragged out of its shell like it was against Rutgers, and Indiana's better equipped for this. I'm with you. I'm a veteran of seeing Iowa do weird, funky things, and all of a sudden it looks like the other team's dominating. The score is 2-0 or something. So I was going to try to drag this down into the muck and mud, but they just don't have the personnel to do it. So you're not crazy for thinking, oh yeah, it's Iowa at home, but I don't think it's this week. I think Indiana wins. And look, they don't lose, at least under Cignetti so far. These aren't the games they're losing. So I think they pulled this one off, and they keep looking the part.
I agree. I wouldn't bet the over either, because the total being so low. I mean, Indiana, how many points they scored last week? And the total's 48.5 this week. I mean, they're begging you.
They scored 63 because they didn't feel like scoring 70. That was.
And the total's 48.5 this week. So I think, and that's both teams combined.
I have never ever gotten. Here's me. See, I'm a believer. I'm a sweetheart and sweet soul. God is my witness, and my wife. I tried to explain this to my wife last week. God is my witness. I thought Iowa was going to go Iowa. As soon as you had the 2 missed field goals and the interception, I thought that they were still going to go with the under against Rutgers. I don't know if you saw that, but the under was something crazy. It was the total was 46.5. The point total was at 42 at halftime, and they both just dinked and dunked. I'm like, I was going to shut them out in the second half, get a field goal, and the miraculous under was going to happen. Didn't happen. Always go under with Iowa. You're never, ever wrong going under with an Iowa game.
Interesting game Friday night. TCU Arizona State. This game kind of feels like a early Big 12 title kind of vibe. Nice win for Arizona State last week at Baylor. TCU looks the part, beating SMU in that rivalry game, not a conference game. Really fun game. Arizona State's about a field goal plus, about 3.5 at home.
I'm a believer in TCU, and the problem is it's kind of it's my Utah-UCLA problem. Like, I came into the season thinking Utah was a killer, and then I watched the UCLA game and was like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to dominate the planet. They're going to be the 3 seed in the college football playoff, and nope. Why? Because UCLA is going to go 0-12 this year. I had the same kind of thought, like, wow, okay, I think TCU is really good. They just hammered North Carolina. Wow, this team's the real deal. Gotta throw that one out because North Carolina is not good at college football. So I'm gonna stick with my gut and say it's gonna be TCU. Keep it going. Arizona State does not have the running. They don't have the combination. They didn't run well. They ran well at Mississippi State. They didn't throw, and against everyone else, seemed to throw and not be able to run. I don't think they're gonna be able to run enough on TCU. And I am not the Sam Levitt guy that everyone else is. I think he's fine. I don't see him as this be all end all NFL talent. So I'm going to stick with my TCU call until it stops.
Hoover's better than Levitt. I think
Wow.
TCU's got the better quarterback in this game for sure.
They're both great. I mean, Levitt's very good. He's a playmaker. He's got all the skills. But you're right. Hoover's in that offense.
Yeah,
he's playing really well right now. TCU is. And I'm not going to say that they're back to their national championship game level, but this team has certainly got the talent.
Yeah, I think TCU and maybe Iowa State, but probably TCU would be my pick to win the Big 12 right now if I had to make it. And I'm seeing some 3.5s go bye-bye. It's mostly 3s in the market.
I would make an argument that while everyone is in mad deep love with Indiana, Texas Tech had just as good a game against Utah.
Texas Tech looks good too.
And that was with a backup quarterback coming in.
Yeah.
Utah couldn't move the ball at all. I mean, that defense showed up, and that's what $28 million bought you, and it worked. So I'm thinking this is Texas Tech's conference at the moment with TCU. So here's the funky part. You look at Iowa State's schedule. Iowa State's going 11-1. They're going to lose somewhere, but they're going to, unless they face plant, they're beating everyone else.
They're at TCU, and we'll get to the Iowa State game in a minute because they got an interesting game against Arizona. They're at TCU, and then they're home to BYU. Besides that, it's kind of cakewalk city.
Yeah.
I think they beat BYU. Speaking of BYU, they play a game, I think it's at Colorado this week. Yeah, it's at Boulder. BYU's about a touchdown favorite. Again, low total game. Didn't love what we saw from overall. I think Colorado's looked okay, but I haven't loved what I've seen from the quarterback position. I know they covered last week against Wyoming. And BYU, anytime there's a player with the number starting with a 4 playing quarterback, I get a little bit funky. Where is it? Bachmeier for BYU at quarterback now?
Pick your Bachmeier. There's a million.
There's like 7 of them on the team.
Like 12 of them, exactly. There's Zendejas brothers at quarterbacks and receiver. No, the problem is I will just straight up, no, I have zero handle on BYU because we haven't seen them do. I mean, we talked last week. I was kind of with you. I thought East Carolina eventually was going to be.
Yeah. That game was not close at all.
No, and so they don't have a ton of stars. They're just kind of sound, and they're just going to keep on winning. I am not buying Colorado. I don't think they're as bad, and everyone's going to sit there and dunk on them because of all the hype from the last few years. They're okay. They're not good enough. And in a Big 12 where it's so even from top to almost bottom, I think Colorado's the team that's going to be. The difference last year was Shedeur. Shedeur pulled out all these different games where they won all these, all those miraculous wins, the double Hail Mary against Baylor and the late drives and that they kept winning games by the skin of their teeth. And it just so happened that Shedeur was that good. And Malik Willis is not Malik Willis. I'm blank. Caden Salter. Sorry, I'm going the other Liberty quarterback. Caden Salter is he's a veteran. He was great at Liberty. It's just it wasn't meshing with him there. They can't find the quarterback, and they've got they figured out the lines. They just don't have the talent there. So Colorado's one of those teams that's going to play tough in every game now and lose.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 is really. I think it's a 2-team race. I do. I think it's Iowa.
You're not
State,
giving me away Red Raiders at this point?
Oh, sorry, 3-team race. Excuse me. Texas Tech, Iowa State, TCU. I'd eliminate. I would eliminate BYU, but I'm wrong a lot. So
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. I mean, maybe because they're not. We haven't seen them yet. We haven't really seen they haven't stress test this Cougar team.
They have to go to Ames and go. So they have a 3-game stretch. 3 out of the last 5 games. 3-game stretch. Late October, early November. At Iowa State, at Texas Tech, home to TCU. We'll find out how good BYU is those 3 weeks.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, they did. They hit the. They couldn't run through the tape last year. That's not good. That ain't happening.
I think Texas Tech and the Big 12. Listen, it's an interesting conference, but Texas Tech, I would give the inside track. Here's this schedule for Texas Tech. They already played their toughest game at at Utah. I think that was their toughest road game. They have to go to Arizona State. I think that'll be a fun game, but I think Texas Tech's better. And they have to go to Kansas State and then West Virginia. The rest of their games are all at home. UCF, BYU, Oklahoma State, Kansas. Like, Texas Tech's winning 11 games too, it feels like.
Yeah, Kansas is a wild card.
Okay.
That's a funky team that's got a lot of talent. As long as Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, they've got an offense. I'm not sold on their defense, but they're gonna screw someone up along the way. I don't think they have enough in the tank to get to the Big 12 championship, but they're pretty good. They're very explosive.
Here's my prediction: the winner of the TCU Iowa State game, which is in about 6 weeks, will be in the Big 12 championship game, and they will face TCU.
That's the Big 12. You're now giving the Big 12's dream, because if you look at the Iowa State schedule, they would dream that Iowa State loses that, wins everything else, goes 11-1, so they're in. The Big 12 champion, it's in. And let's say the Big 12 loser, how about 3 teams? How about what if,
I don't know if I can get there. That would be wild.
But look, again, you just read off the TCU schedule. You read off the Texas Tech schedule. You got 3 teams that are probably going to have 10 wins at least. You might have 2 11-win teams. Wow. That's a lot to ask. But yeah, it's not crazy, especially if everyone starts beating each other up in the SEC and you got a bunch of 9-win teams there.
I think you're going to see a lot of 9-win teams in the SEC, and the ACC lost its main cog in Clemson. So
but we have Miami. Here's my other to your call. I'm going to pivot to the ACC. Miami, Florida State in 2 weeks, kind of like Oregon.
I think
Penn
Florida
State.
State's a paper tiger. That's my thing. I'm not.
Or Castellanos goes off and he's the Heisman. You get the rest of their schedules. I think the loser of that's in. I think the winner of that's in.
Wow.
Take those 2 and go from there. But
don't sleep on Virginia this Friday night for Florida State. That's a big game for Virginia.
Playing
That's the biggest game in the history of the Virginia program, I heard.
At least, I'm old enough to remember that Georgia Tech game where Georgia Tech went on to win the national championship with a tie back in that day. But yeah, no, this is big with Florida State. I mean, this is one of those games. So there's a lot of games, and so we're talking about all these teams. And again, look at Cal's schedule. Forget the San Diego State game. You look at Cal's schedule; they can still go 10-2. It's
going to be tough for Cal to get in unless they win the ACC with
absolutely.
San Diego State.
I think what we're going to have to get used to as a society, as America, is going to have to be like, you know what? The SEC's not that great anymore.
Wow.
They can't, because you've neutralized the factor. Texas Tech bought the talent.
Yes.
The Big Ten has more money. It's the most.
There's more parity now than there was 5 years ago. Totally.
And more money. Again, people. At some point, someone from Alabama is going to realize Purdue makes more money than we do. The Big Ten has so much more money to spend than the SEC does. And that hasn't shifted completely yet, but we've seen it where the SEC is vulnerable. They didn't win all those games last year like they were supposed to. They lose a lot of non-conference games. Georgia's still good. Alabama's still good. LSU's still good. But that midsection on down, it's beatable. So the whole idea that, we got to get the SEC team in, maybe. Florida State just showed that Alabama's not that great, so let's see what happens the rest of this way. But, I'm not just going to automatically say, 9-3 Missouri should be in because it's in the SEC. No, not compared to like an 11-1 Iowa State, maybe.
I will not tolerate any Bo Prabula slander here on the here.
He left you. You're cheering for your old girlfriend here. Basically, you're rooting for your old girlfriend to dating a guy who got more
Isn't
money.
it interesting, though? I'll be honest, and I have a lot of connections still close to that Penn State locker room. They loved him, and he was a rah-rah guy, and he was obviously not a 5-star recruit like Drew Aller was, but he played above his recruiting star, whereas Drew Aller seems to be playing below it. And I would argue that on a talented team like Penn State has, I would rather have the gritty, gutty guy that everyone loves that's going to play above his pay grade than the star that's going to underachieve.
You're now talking about it's one of those always interesting things in college sports where Stetson Bennett is not
yes,
a
great
NFL
example.
talent.
How about
And
Gunnar
Carson
Stockton
Beck,
currently for Georgia? Same
exactly.
situation.
And like honestly, if you're in the NFL draft, like Carson Beck might be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Gunnar Stockton might not be drafted. You know, like. But
who'd you rather have starting for you if you're Georgia right now? I think a lot of Georgia fans would rather have Stockton.
You don't want to mess with it, but yeah, I'm a talent guy. Give me the more talented player. But the problem with college sports a lot of times is if you do have the more talented player, as much as they say they're a team, they're kind of like, I don't want to get hurt because I got like tens of millions of dollars coming my way at the next level. And so
hindsight's always 20/20, Pete. But you can't be wrong about keeping Prbula. If you keep Prbula and you let Aller go to the NFL or go somewhere else, and you're wrong, you get fired. But if you keep Aller and he just doesn't live up to the expectations, you don't get fired.
Yeah, and it happens all the time where it's like, God, I had an example the other day about who.
But it's Nico. I think it's Nico, but not quite to the drama extent. But Nico has fallen off.
And I would argue
highly recruited prospects coming out of high school, and now he can't even beat New Mexico.
And I would argue if Tennessee had Nico, they beat Georgia. So like,
wow,
it's at some point like he's more talented. Like I will keep saying this, he's got nothing around him. That UCLA thing is such a mess.
It is.
And I like all these arguments. Well, you look at the score check. Tennessee won. Nico, lost this big. Dude made about like $4 million.
Nico did it to himself. It's really his agent or his dad or whoever's running.
Look, we're fans. We treat this as fans.
Sure.
But this is a business, and dude made about $4 million, and what does he care? He's gonna go for the NFL.
Yeah,
great.
I thought it was a bad business decision though, because he went from I think $2 million in a state with no income tax to less than that in a state with the highest income tax.
True. Yeah. No, I get it, but he'll be just fine. We don't have to hold a bake sale for Nico. So he'll be just fine. He'll be just fine. But to my point, it's like again, there are certain moments in games where you have the guy. Whether it was at the end of the Notre Dame game, Carson Beck, that was an NFL caliber. Like that's why I watching as much college as we do, much as I do. I love watching NFL and just the precision of like there's somehow 4 seconds left and the field goal team runs out on the field and they get the ball off. Or like there's 31 seconds left, and that's a ton of time for Josh Allen. Bam, 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 and then boom. You need a guy who can do that. Not all college quarterbacks can do that. Guys like Nico have the talent to do that, but unfortunately he's bogged down, and UCLA will never hear from him again.
Yeah, probably not. All right, let's get to the 2 premier games. I think I'm going to bet on both of these. I think this one I like the dog, and it's Alabama at Georgia. We've seen this number go from 3.5 down to 3. It's kind of hovering right on that field goal mark. It feels like Alabama's defense turned a corner against Wisconsin last week, and I love Ty Simpson. But listen, Georgia, I think they've got the longest home winning streak in the country. But Kirby Smart really struggles against Alabama, right?
Crazy. I mean, I kind of forgot how this is easily one of the greatest runs of eight games in the history of college football. You had one clunker, but like when this really got going with the national championship, the 2nd and 26 national championship, you look at those SEC championships, and so in last year's game, 7 of those 8 are among the greatest games in college football history. And that's not hyperbole. Like they were literally like the top teams in the country going down to the final seconds, or there's some historic play happening or something crazy. These two play great college football. So it's either way. I do not think we're going to get a 35-3. We're not getting Illinois, Indiana here. I'm sheepishly saying Georgia. I don't love it. But look, there's a chance they found it. Alabama doesn't run the ball. The defense
They're getting Jan Miller back this week, though.
Yeah, but they're not going to run on Georgia. They don't have a pass rush. But what they're doing is they've kind of now become the Washington of under Kalen DeBoer, where you didn't have much of a running game. You didn't have a great defense, but you just had the quarterback who could keep throwing. And Ty Simpson over the last couple of games, that dude, he was actually good in Florida State. They just didn't have any help.
Agreed.
And it kind of gets lost because they looked so bad for a while. They came back a little bit in that game once they started to like snap out of it, but it was too late. And I know beating Wisconsin's no big deal. They looked great. I mean, that deep shot, he's been hitting like 80% of his passes. I mean, Ty Simpson has been fantastic, but I just kind of think Georgia's just a little more solid. So I'm not hard on this, but I'm going to go Georgia.
I'll take the 3. I would rather have 3 points in my back pocket. This does feel like a field goal game. It really does. Russo,
NFL, that's your NFL side coming out. If you either go to pick the winner, if it's 3 points,
all right, Alabama
pick
wins.
The winner.
Alabama wins, and yeah, I think you're a little bit. I think you're a little down on their pass rush. I think they're better up front than maybe you give them credit for. Russo and Overton are legit, and they're getting back Tim Keenan this week, who is a
they're talented
stuffer.
It ain't happening, though. I mean, Georgia's not going to run on it, but Georgia's going to have a little more explosion this year. I do love the over. This is not going to be some sort of.
I agree with that. I do. It does feel back and forth. Last year, what was it, 28-0 or something?
Oh, they blew that out of the water right out of the gate. I don't think we're getting that, but I do think we're going to get like a 31-27-ish type of game.
I mean, Georgia's other big game this year was 44-41. So
so
I don't think we're going to quite see to that end. The only thing that scares me is when you get Jam Miller back healthy and fresh. I'd be giving this guy 20 carries this week, and I would continue to try to take the pressure off Simpson. I love what I'm seeing with Simpson's eyes. He looks very comfortable in this system, I think, now that he's starting to get settled. And you're right. On the goal line last year, it was Jalen Milroe quarterback power. Now it's pistol play action. It is very Washington-esque. And I think Bama's the better team right now. I honestly do. I think Bama's got the better quarterback. I think the defenses are even. I think the coaches are slight edge to Georgia.
And what's funny about this, too, is one of the off-season storylines is, well, like, the Nico thing. Like, oh, my God, can you imagine if Nico went to Alabama? Or can you imagine, Notre Dame had better,
Nico had started Alabama this year.
Yeah, like, and that's kind of the point now is, like, Notre Dame and Ohio State, they're all going with these untested quarterbacks. Dante Moore, to a certain extent, in Oregon, not even though he started at UCLA. But all these guys, these coaches who are making $10 million a year for a reason.
Yeah.
C.J. Carr looks great. Dante Moore looks great. Ty Simpson's looking great. Julian Sands looking great. So sometimes you recruit the guy, and you've got the guy, and you don't have to go find your transfer to make this happen.
Alabama wins a high-scoring game. Their defense makes a stop late to seal it. That's my prediction.
All right. That's my prediction. They watch. That screws up the SEC royally if that happens.
Oh, man, it would. But it'd be great for my Bama over 9.5 wins. Man, do I need them to win this game. All right, game of the week in Happy Valley. My Nittany Lions.
You're not white-outing yet. You have no school spirit. You don't care.
I'm not wearing white. No, I'm wearing black, just like my soul, color of my soul. Penn State 3.5-point favorite. I feel like all the talk this week has been about Drew Aller and James Franklin, which is fair. You want to say neither of them have won the big game. I can't push back.
I can.
I can too, but the record speaks for itself. Here's what's different in this game, Pete. Penn State's better in the trenches. I think significantly better O-line against Oregon's D-line. I think that's why they win this game and cover.
Maybe. To your point, James Franklin has won a hell of a lot. Who hasn't won a lot of big games? Everybody.
Yeah.
It's hard. His record against top 10 teams. Yeah, everyone sucks against top 10 teams.
They've never had a roster good enough to beat those teams until now.
But he has to a point. I mean, the stat is that now that Mike Gundy's gone, especially. But he's won 78%, 75% of his games,
and they've won a bunch of New Year's Six bowl games. They beat Washington in the Fiesta Bowl that one year when they had Browning. They've won some really good games.
The only coach who's been around as long with his same team as Franklin, who's been better with a winning percentage, is Dabo. So James Franklin's walking in, and they be careful what you wish for. Everyone's like, oh, well, can't win the big games. And ask Oklahoma what it would be like to win 75% of your games over the last several years. Ask even Texas to a certain extent. And Florida, it's not that easy. So I'm kind of a James Franklin apologist.
Me too.
With that said, win this game, James Franklin. You've got the best team in America.
Yep.
I am very, very sheepishly going Oregon. I don't think that. I mean, I joke with you. The whiteout. They're wearing white T-shirts. You know who wears the same color T-shirts to games? Every college football fan base on the planet. But okay, it's going to be crazy. But I think Oregon's going to feed off this. They are so sharp. I mean, they have been. I know beating Oklahoma State's no big deal, but it was kind of under the radar. they didn't have to even break a sweat against Oregon State. That was a dangerous game because of the rivalry aspect.
Oregon State's bad, though.
They're bad, but that's one of those games.
The best team they faced actually might be Montana State this year.
Might be. And the problem is we don't know. I think all this talk is, well, we don't know what Penn State is. Yeah, we do. They didn't have to try in the first 3 games. And they'd better be up to speed because they're brilliant. I don't see why anybody else. And if you're a college football team that wants to win stuff, why don't you have the Penn State schedule? What are you doing playing a real team before you have to start the Big Ten season? Nobody, because
especially when you play 9 conference games, I don't see the point in scheduling a non-conference powerhouse. I really don't.
Like, nobody's gonna care if you get the great. So you didn't play a tough non-conference schedule. Yeah, well, if you're in the Final Four.
It doesn't matter in September. And that is the point of the 12-team and then soon 16-team playoff. Your September games are for entertainment value only.
We're sticking with 12 for a while, by the way. They just put a kibosh on that.
They put the kibosh on the 16? Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
For at least a little while. They'll change their tune.
I'm sure, yeah. Actually, if you're not happy with how things are going in college football, wait a year and it'll change.
Wait till Sunday morning when Alabama beats Georgia, and all of a sudden they realize they're going to have a bunch of 9-3 teams in the SEC. It's going to be
and there's
one
gonna
SEC.
Be 3 Big 12 teams in the playoff.
One SEC team, 3 Cal gets in over a 9-3 Ole Miss, and all of a sudden you're going to see them lose their minds.
It's going to be great. So I have 2 keys in this game. I think on the offensive side for Oregon is how Dante Moore handles the atmosphere. I know he's played at Utah and at Oregon State in his career at UCLA, but this will be the most fracas, crazy environment he's played in. So how he handles that, I think, is key. On the Oregon defensive side, I think they're softer this year up front, right? They lose Derek Harmon, and even last year with Derek Harmon, Penn State ran it for 3 bills against them in the Big Ten title game. I think Oregon's going to have to commit bodies to the box. They're going to have to leave these very new secondary pieces on an island, right? They had the Purdue transfer, the Ole Miss transfer, and then the true freshman, Finney Jr., who's played well. But that's a very young secondary to be leaving one-on-one with some really good receivers, and that's where Drew Aller's going to have to win. Penn State's going to have a lot of one-on-ones on the outside with Hudson and Pena and Ross. If they can connect, and if Aller is in sync, I think that's where Penn State really does have the edge in this matchup.
I have flashbacks, and it's pained in my head because I've never been physically harmed, or the closest I've been to truly threatened was before a Rose Bowl several years ago when I just asked the Oregon offensive linemen who were up on the thing so what do you say to the idea that you play kind of a soft offense? And they just lurched at me. They love the idea that, we're Oregon. We play this tippy-tappy, quick game.
I don't think they do that under Lanning. They're a very heavy-back offense. They rotate 4 or 5 backs in. They will pound the rock on you.
They will pound on offense. But you're right. That defense is going to be – but you're right. I disagree. Like you say, you're with me on this. But I disagree with the Franklin needs this one.
Yeah.
I do think this is an Aller moment because you've got the best team in the country, more talent-wise. Again, if Ohio State or Texas or Alabama had this Penn State team, they'd be the number 1 team, and no one would be blinking right now because they got everyone back. We talked before about the Notre Dame running backs. Penn State's running backs are right there. You've got the explosion. You've got the experience. Everything is in place to pull this off. I can't. It's just in my head that Oregon's just that tough right now, but I will not be shocked if we're talking Penn State next week that, that's the team. That's the number 1 team. And if Penn State wins this, they're number 1. That's the only thing it's missing is that Ohio State's been grooving off that Texas win, and everyone's gotten lazy and hasn't changed it because Texas isn't that great. But if Penn State wins this, that's the number 1 team in the country.
All right, I'll finish with story time. So in 2004 was the first whiteout at Penn State. It was a day game against Purdue. We were terrible that year. Kyle Orton kicked our ass. And the next year they said, hey, this was cool. Let's do it on a grander scale. And they were undefeated. They started the year 5-0, and Ohio State was coming in. Game day was coming to town, so they made it the night game and the whiteout. And Tom Bahali sacked Troy Smith on the last play of the game to seal the win. That's how this game's going to end. Penn State's going to have a lead, and Dennis Sutton is going to sack Dante Moore or create some kind of explosive play, havoc play on defense that will seal the victory for Penn State.
You've spoken it into existence. You speak it in my. Wait, I could be wrong on this. It's either one way or the other. It's either Penn State's like 19-1 or 1-19 or something. I can't remember which way. What's the
No, they're
stat
good
is
in the whiteout games. They
Is that
now
what
the
it is?
competition has been very sparse. Early on, in those early days of the whiteouts, they weren't the premier games. Over the last few years, they've become premier games, but they always pick a game that's winnable. They always pick a game where they're going to be.
Did you white out for the block 6 against the Urbans and against Ohio State?
I don't remember if that was an official whiteout game, but I remember a game against Michigan where Allen Robinson and Christian Hackenberg went berserk in the final minute or two.
Christian Hackenberg. You talk about talented. That's a good God. I preached that guy. Wait till you see this guy. Oops,
Anthony Morelli's another one. Same thing.
Woo,
Listen. I have a laundry list of Penn State quarterbacks that have underachieved in college and were even worse in the NFL. Hackenberg.
I honestly thought, and then there's Matt McGloin who gets there, and what does he do? He's been the best quarterback. Actually, no, the best Penn State quarterback. He didn't even play quarterback in the NFL. Michael Robinson, he played fullback. I think I got this stat right. Yeah, right. Totally. I think I got this stat right. When you get to the stats like quarterbacks from colleges who have won a national title or won a Super Bowl. Like, there's never, because you remember Oklahoma was always the option team for years.
Yeah.
Oklahoma doesn't have one. USC doesn't have
surprise
a Super
with
Bowl
Leinart and
championship.
Palmer and all those guys.
I mean, Michigan does because Brady won them all, and now Texas Tech does. Now Alabama. Actually, Oklahoma does.
I don't think Ohio State has one, right? Ohio State.
Yeah, Oklahoma does technically because of Hurts now.
Because of Hurts. Yeah, but he only.
I still see him as Alabama, but it's kind of crazy that Penn State's one of those where you'd think like a Kerry Collins or someone would have over the years would have made
a lot of success for Penn State, but the quarterback position, the best quarterbacks that I remember watching at Penn State were the gritty underachievers, the Trace McSorleys, the Sean Cliffords. Those were the guys that I always enjoyed watching because they weren't expected to be great, but they played way above.
Yeah, these guys who complete like 41% of their passes but won the national championship.
Yeah, they're just gritty, gutty players that the locker room loves. Bro Prabula is one of those guys, but I think he's got more talent than, a McSorley. But this is a shut-up game, put up or shut up game for Drew Aller. There are no excuses. You are going to have a lot of favorable situations on the outside where you've got one-on-one with Hudson and Pena and Ross, and you've got an inexperienced Oregon secondary that I.
So how about this? How about this for a crazier call? And I'll say this right now: this is part 1. There's probably going to be a part 2, and there might be a part 3.
Between Oregon and Penn State.
Yes. So I think we might be just getting started with these two kids.
It's all about the Ohio State game in a couple weeks. I think it's going to be a weird menage a trois with Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State at the top of the Big Ten. I don't know what the Big Ten.
So Indiana's the one sitting behind the screen, kind of watching all this while all the creepy stuff's happening. Is that?
Yeah, I had a pushback this week that Michigan should be in more consideration for a college football playoff at-large berth. I don't think
you look at their schedule. That win at Nebraska, we started like 2 days ago when we started this, and we talked at the top that the going 10-2 matters. They're going to be favored in every game up until Ohio State. And if they get to the Columbus Day, I think it's in Ann Arbor. If they get to the Buckeye Day 10-1, they're in. They're in the college football playoff. They
go to USC, and then they get Ohio State at home. I mean, I think there might be a dog at USC, but that's it.
Yeah. So that's it. You win. You split those two, and you're
you go 11-1 or 10-2. You're in the playoff.
Take your 10 seed in the so now basically we've got 3 Big Ten teams in. We've got at least 2 ACC teams.
The SEC's going to get 1 team.
I'm counting 5. I've got 5 Big Ten teams in, because that's not crazy though. Because think about Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan could all have 10 wins, and if that happens, they're all in, and we are going to 16-team playoff faster than you can say. It just means more.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff as always, Pete. I'm Jared. We appreciate you joining us. Week 5 college football show on Lineups.